everyone, this video is going to be about another sailing trip that I did with my neighbours, and we went to Tenby in West Wales. This trip was a little bit different to last time because James, who is the only one of us with a significant amount of sailing experience, was not going to be on the boat. He had made plans to go off cruising for a month, and so the plan was that we would follow him as far as Tenby in Nigel's boat. Of course that meant that we would have to come back on our own because James was continuing on to other destinations. The distance to Tenby is about 30 miles. We ended up having some very calm conditions both on the way there and on the way back. This I think was a good thing given that none of us on the boat really had a lot of experience. But it also sadly meant that we didn't get to do a lot of actual sailing. We were mostly either motoring or motor sailing. So I'll show you how the trip went. And before we get started, I think that there was a bit of a smear on my camera lens at the time that I took this footage. So yeah, I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for the smudge on the screen. I will try to take better care to clean my lens next time. Yeah, we really should have put the dinghy on deck, I think. But a bit late now. Lovely!
Fantastic.
I think there might be some rain later on though.
Yeah.
That would be a shame.
Yeah. The absolute highlight of the trip for me was when we saw some dolphins. I think at first we saw kind of a part of them in the distance, and then some of them actually approached the boat and they came pretty close, and I did manage to get a little bit of footage of them, so I will put that in now. Wow! Those two! Did you see those two? Look at them!
Yeah, they're following the dinghy.
Wow! This is amazing! Oh my god! Oh, wow! After the dolphins we had another interesting event where Nigel suddenly pointed out that we had lost our dinghy. We had been towing it behind us, which personally I'm not a fan of doing over any significant distance, but the others had made the point that it blocked visibility a lot when it was on the foredeck just because of the shape of this particular dinghy, so they wanted to tow it rather than having it on deck, but somehow it had come loose, and so we suddenly looked behind us and it was probably about 200 yards behind. Luckily we noticed before we got too far away. So yeah, it was all hands on deck at that point to get it back. Nigel turned the boat around, and when we got close enough, me and Nick hauled the dinghy up onto the deck and kind of stowed it there for the rest of the trip. we didn't really have any significant events on the trip. We arrived safely and anchored near to James and his daughter. And then we took the dinghy to shore. After having a bit of a look around town, Nick and I had to get the train home because we both had to work in the morning. Or more accurately, we had to get a very long, slow rail replacement bus because apparently there were cows on the line and this had caused a very significant delay. So we left Nigel on the boat at anchor, and then the following afternoon, when we were both done with work, we made our way back to Tenby. We went back to the boat for a little while, and then James and his daughter gave us a tow to shore to save us from rowing because it was actually quite a significant distance to row.
We're about to hit a buoy.
We got some chips and just kind of wandered around a bit more, and then we spent the night on the boat. I was lucky and I got the aft cabin, which was very comfortable. Nick got stuck with the settee and had to fall off in the middle of the night. And then the following afternoon it was time to head home again. We did actually manage to get in maybe an hour of just pure sailing without running the motor, and we could have gone longer, but we were looking at the estimated arrival time on the navigation software, and it was saying that we were really cutting it a little bit fine in terms of getting home for the last lock of the day, and we really did not want to risk getting stuck outside the locks. So we did end up putting the engine back on. On the way back, the only incident was at one point we discovered some water in the aft cabin, which was a little bit worrying. We think that it was from a slow leak that has probably been happening for a while, but possibly the motion of sailing had kind of caused that water to slosh up out of wherever it had been. So it looked worse than it actually was, but yeah, probably something that needs to be checked out before the boat goes out again. But regardless, we did make it safely back. We were well in time for the locks. And I was actually very proud of how we did, given that between the three of us we probably had sort of less than a few hundred miles of sailing. I think we did really well to get there safely. And even though there wasn't a whole lot of actual sailing, it was mostly motoring or motor sailing, it was still really good practice in terms of things like navigation and using the VHF and that kind of thing. I know that a lot of you have been wanting to see some trips in my boat, and I would also like to make that happen. The main issue at the moment is I have a bit of a problem with the motor, or not specifically with the motor, but with the control panel. So I went to test the motor recently and discovered that it wasn't starting properly. My dad came down and had a look at it with me, and we discovered that the problem is the potentiometer, which was being used as a throttle basically. It was supposed to be waterproof, but evidently it wasn't, and some water had got inside and corroded it. So I'm now kind of having a rethink about that setup, because the potentiometer was not sort of an ideal way of controlling the speed of the boat anyway. So I'm looking at potentially changing that. My dad is going to help me out with that, I believe. I'm not quite sure when that will be done, but in the meantime I will hopefully continue to have adventures on other people's boats, and eventually when it's up and running then my boat can go out again. So that's just an update for anyone who might be wondering why I haven't been taking this boat out. So that's that for this trip. I hope you enjoyed this video, and hopefully there will be more to come, so I'll see you next time.